and welcome to Silver Lining Knitting. This video will introduce you to some of the basic concepts of Japanese stitch patterns. In case you aren't familiar with Japanese knitting, these two books are the most well-known resources for explanations and stitch patterns. They're available through Amazon, and you may find them in large bookstores or knitting shops too. Both books have photos and charts of hundreds of stitch patterns plus explanations of the stitches and symbols used. You can also find Japanese patterns on Ravelry and some other knitting websites. The explanations and charts in these books and all the other Japanese patterns that I've been able to find are written for needle knitting, but this video series will show you how to adapt the patterns for knitting on a loom. If you've adapted other needle knitting patterns to loom use, you know that in needle knitting, you alternate rows working on the right side then the wrong side of the fabric. But in loom knitting, you're always working the right side. So in adapting patterns and charts, you'll have to make all your instructions for the right side. The symbols in these charts have two meanings, one for the right side and one for the wrong side, so it's easy to follow the charts for loom knitting by always doing the right side stitch for each symbol. You can work directly from the charts in the books if you keep a couple of things in mind. First, each pattern has a key at the bottom indicating whether it's based on knit stitches or purls. If a blank cell means a knit stitch, then purls are represented by a horizontal line. And if a blank cell means a purl stitch, then knits are shown with a vertical line. Also, each chart shows how many rows and stitches are in the repeat, but the chart's generally printed with extra rows and stitches so you can see the bigger pattern. So if you work directly from the chart, you need to determine where to begin and end your rows and how many stitches to knit. For several reasons, I find it easier to adapt the charts and make my own. It's confusing to me to reverse the knit and purl stitches, so I always make my charts with the blank cell for knits and a horizontal line for purls. I also find that for flat panel knitting, it's usually necessary to have a border stitch or a border of garter stitch to make the piece lay flat. So I add 5 to 7 rows to the top and bottom of the chart and 3 to 4 stitches on each side. And the app that I use to create the charts, which is called Knit Chart, doesn't have all of the symbols that are in the books, but I can usually find something similar to use. Here's a chart from the 250 Stitches book and the chart that I've adapted on it from it on the app. Notice the rows and stitches around the edge for the garter stitch, which is alternating rows knitting and purling. I've knitted this chart and similar patterns on my Kiss regular gauge loom to make things like placemats and table runners and scarves. It uses knit and purl and twisted stitches plus a few basic decreases, and it makes a really pretty pattern. If you watch my next few videos, you can quickly learn to knit this pattern and many of the others from Hitomi Shida's books.